Hey developers, today we are looking at the Twitter API. We're going to look at the YouTube API, and we're going to create a bot that automatically every day updates our Twitter profile with the number of contributions we have this year and also with our latest YouTube video. So stay all the way to the end and you can learn how we did this. Hey, and if you don't know, my name is Eric. I'm a full stack software developer. I'm a developer at Amazon, and I just really love open source. I really like kind of hacking and playing around with things and Vue.js. So if you guys are interested in any of that, make sure you click that subscribe button below. So what we're gonna do here is, you can see here is my profile. And if you haven't checked it out, twitter.com/ERIKCH, Eric CH is my Twitter profile. Go ahead and throw a follow to me. What I wanna do is, in the location right here, I want to add in this GitHub contributions. I want it to update maybe daily, I think is probably a good idea. And also anytime I release a new video, I want to have this website automatically get updated. Luckily, it's actually not too bad, but it does take a few steps, and I'll walk you through that. Before we get too far, let's have a quick word from tab 9. I want to talk about tab 9 just for a quick moment. If you haven't heard, tab 9 is the way to basically supercharge your auto completions inside your IDE. And what's awesome about it is it supports all modern programming languages. The way it works is you install it in your code editor, and anytime you type anything out, it gives you these really great suggestions that you should use. And the way it works is that it's AI powered, it's completely safe, it's running on your local machine, so you don't have to worry about your code going in the cloud or anything. It's been trained on a model using over 2 million pages on GitHub, so it has really great auto completion, and it supports everything including the Apple Silicon M1 chip. I've been using it for a while in my own projects. You can see here the auto completion is absolutely excellent, and what's really nice, you can try it for free. It has a free forever plan. And then if you want it to work even better, they have a pro plan that is GPU powered. Yeah, so check out tab 9. I'm going to put a link in the description. They have been awesome. It's an awesome tool. Go ahead and get it. It's absolutely for free. And if you want to get that pro plan, it's even better. So check it out. The link will be in the description below. All right, we're back. Okay, so let's talk about how you're going to want to get started first. So the first step in this process is we need to get some keys together so we can talk to these different services. The first thing I would highly recommend is go to developer.twitter.com and click the little button that says apply. So you have to apply for a developer's license. After you get one, then you can go ahead and get a few keys from it. So when you do that, you'll have an access to this Twitter dashboard right here. You can see here some test programs I've created in the past. If you click details, you can actually go ahead and get your keys that you'll need. You'll need to have those. You'll need to have the consumer key, the consumer secret, the access token key, and the access token secret, those 4 keys to be able to do what we're doing here. But I just wanted to show you guys quickly how that works. We're also going to be using this Node Twitter client in Node. We're writing this whole app in Node, by the way. And so this will make it easy to actually connect to the API for us. And then also you'll need to make sure that you get some YouTube keys as well. Now you could probably scrape your favorite YouTubers' videos to do this, but I would highly recommend to get a developer key from YouTube. So to do that, you can go to console.cloud.google.com or console.developers.google.com, and it'll bring up a dashboard like this. In the top left-hand corner, you'll see something that says YouTube. Well, it'll probably say add account. You just click on it, and then you can click new project, and then you can create a brand new project. And then once you do that, click this enable APIs and services at the top, and then you can search for YouTube, and you should see the YouTube data API v3. Click on this. Add it, and then once you have that added in, you can click on credentials. I'm not going to click on it because I don't want to give it away. And then you can add a new credential. Now for YouTube, there's 2 types of credentials. There's one for OAuth, and then there's an access key. For this example, all you need is the access key. But if you're doing more complicated stuff with YouTube, like for example, my buddy Kyle from Web Dev Simplified was updating his YouTube title every time the number of views changed, then you'll probably want to use the OAuth keys, which is a little bit more setup, but you just basically click a button and you can add them in there. And then I won't worry about anything else on here. And there's actually pretty good documentation for the YouTube docs. So I'll put a link to this in the description. All these links will be in the description below, including the GitHub with all the code if you want to follow along that way. But what we want to do is for the YouTube data, we're just going to use grab some JSON data. So we're going to use a fetch, just a quick get request to the URL, passing in our access key. And then we're going to use this playlist items, and you can actually set inside this playlist items playlist URL. And I'll show you a little trick when we get there, so you can grab the latest videos from anybody's YouTube channel, which is pretty cool. All right, so let's get started. I have a blank project here. I'm using VS Code with Synthwave 84 as the theme. So the first thing we want to do is to just open up, just create a brand new empty folder here, and we want to get npm initialized. So I'm going to type in npm init tac y, and this will go ahead and create an empty package.json for me, just called bot, which is fine for right now. And now what you want to do is I'm going to install a few packages to get ready. And I'm going to use TypeScript in this, but this will work exactly the same if you don't use TypeScript. So I'm going to npm I, well, we'll do we'll do developer dependencies, or dev dependencies first. So let's add in types node, because we're going to use TypeScript, and we're gonna actually install node fetch, because I think that's it. And then types / node fetch, and then we're going to do types / Twitter, because we're going to use the Twitter, and we'll do tsc node, which will be something we use to create our node, our TypeScript for our node server, and we'll do TypeScript as well. So this will just take a moment to install. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and install the normal dependencies, the regular dependencies. So we're going to do Axios. We're going to use this date library. We're going to do .env to have our environmental variables. We're going to do node fetch. We're going to use Puppeteer, because I thought it'd be fun to use that to grab data, and we're going to use Twitter. So let's just take a second. Great, so it's all installed. So one last thing we want to install is we want to put a tsconfig file, because we're going to be using TypeScript. And Ben Awad, our fellow YouTube favorite developer out there, actually created this package here. So do tsconfig.json, and it'll ask you what type of tsconfig you want to install. And we can choose which one, and we're going to choose Node, which will show up here in one moment. Cool, so we'll go ahead and choose Node, and that'll go ahead and install for us, and it'll create this new tsconfig JSON file with some common defaults for us that we'll be using. And now let's see if we can get everything working. And also, by the way, if you want to, one thing I like to do is I install tsnode as a global variable. So I'll do npm install tacg tsnode, so that way you can run it from the command line. All right, and I'll just change this package.json. We'll add some more in here. We'll add a dev, which we'll just do a tsnode source index.typescript, which we'll be adding in a second. And then we'll do a build, which should just be tsc, which is our TypeScript compiler. Okay, we'll create a new folder. We'll call it source, and we'll create a new file called index.ts. And then inside here, let's just do a console log. Let's see if we can get it working. Console log hello world. And if we did this right, it should work. So the npm run dev. Cool. So we at least have it working there. It says hello world. That's good news. But let's see if we can actually do a few things. First, we're going to use this .env to do our configurations, and we have a lot of secrets. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new file here called .env, and this is where we're going to create and put all our secrets, so that the way they don't get added to our source control. So first we'll need a few of them. Let me just copy and paste this from another screen here. Okay, so here are all the keys you need. You should have all these keys from the previous steps where we went in and added our new Twitter account, our Twitter developer account, and we got the Google Access key. So I'm going to go ahead and fill this out off camera with our new secrets, and then we'll continue on to the next step. Okay, so we have all our environmental variables, so and we should have everything installed that we need. So let's add a few things. We're going to add in our .env from .env. By the way, we're already getting some auto completion, which is cool because we're using TypeScript when we've installed all the types. And the first thing we want to do is let's create a new Twitter client. So we'll do new Twitter here. And you can see here we have ops and access tokens, and there's a whole bunch of them. You can see here, since we're using auto completion, we have the type set up correctly. The first one we want is the consumer key. Cool. So we're making progress, and I want to add in a URL here. So for our Google API that I mentioned earlier, we can do this playlist, and it looks like this get request right here. but I want to grab in the latest videos from my channel. Quick tip here is you can use this playlist idea, but instead of putting in like a normal playlist, if you look at my YouTube channel, if you go here and you look at the top of my screen, you'll have a URL channel ID. If you refresh it here, you can see here there's this UC. This is on my channel ID. All I have to do is take this UC and change the second letter from C to U and put that as my playlist ID, and then it'll actually list all the playlists. It's kind of a weird trick I learned. It was in a Stack Overflow article, but that's a real trick. So take your channel ID, if it starts with UC, change it to UU, and then you can use that as the playlist ID. So we come up with a URL like this. I'm gonna copy and paste it from my other screen here. So you have the YouTube playlist items, but we do part snippet, playlist ID with that UU, and then you have to put the key at the end, which is in my secrets file, and that should give us the information we're looking for. And then on top of that, I'll need to also add in this URL because we want to grab the URL. So we now need to create two things. We need to grab the YouTube data and the GitHub data. So let's start with the YouTube data. So we'll create a new function called grab YT data, and we're gonna do const data. We're gonna await it. And by the way, I'm not going to do any error corrections or error checking in here. Obviously, this is production. You'd want to, but since we're just doing a demo, we don't care. We're using our fetch. So now we can await the data.json. And now, if we want to, we can console log it to make sure it looks okay. And then I'm going to return. And this is a long URL here, but this is basically will give you this resource ID, .video ID. This will return back the actual video ID we need. And you're probably thinking, like, how the heck did you figure that out? Well, I just ran it and looked at the output. But if you wanted to, you can also look at this and you can test it out just with this API key here and execute it. And then you can get like sample outputs. So obviously this is not working because I didn't put in the correct ID or parts. But if I wanted to, I could change this up. I can look at the outputs. I know it's basically this is where I want it. This gives me the video ID. The next thing we need to do is grab the GitHub data. So this is a little bit more complicated, but we're gonna do another async function. We're gonna call it grab GitHub data. By the way, this does turn our promise, but since we are using promises, might as well use them. And this actually right here, it's the same thing. This returns a promise type string. And so in here, we can use Puppeteer. So we're gonna use browser, we're gonna wait. So what I wanna do here with the grab GitHub data is there's another URL, which I'll show you guys, which I didn't add to the top, but let me bring it up here. So you can use the GitHub API, but GitHub has so many really cool places. And if you go to contributions, and then put from equals 2021, it returns this web page with your contribution graph and the number of contributions you've made in 2021, which is really cool. So I've made 104. So what I thought was, this isn't in JSON, this is just a web page. I thought it'd be fun to use Puppeteer, which is a way that we can scrape data. A lot of people use it for testing. To go to this URL, then if you look inside the console here and look at every individual item, they have this data.date attribute, and it has the data.level, so you can tell if there's any contributions that date. So if we go to, I don't know, this one right here, there it is. So here's one that says data.count equals 2. So I thought it'd be fun just to do a quick query using a query selector in Puppeteer and grab all the data counts and add them all together to find out and make sure that they equal 104. So we can do that. So let's do that. So if we go to, we're gonna await, and then we're gonna do Puppeteer.launch. Once again, we have the nice IntelliSensing us for us. And we're gonna have a page that equals await browser.new page. Now we can actually go to a website. So I'm going to take this website right here that has all the contribution data for this year. And actually I'm gonna put it up here just to make more, I'm gonna call it GitHub URL. And then right here, we're gonna go to GitHub URL. And now we can do something with it. So we're gonna grab the contributions, And we're going to use this page, and we're going to use this eval, which is a way to like do a CSS selector in here. Okay, cool. So what it's saying here is we're doing a data.count, which is a list of basically a query selector for data.count. We're going to go through every single one of them. We're going to get the attribute, which is that number, that 0 or 1, and then we're going to add it all together, and we're starting at 0. And this exclamation point here just says that it's non-null. Whew, okay. So we're making progress. And by the way, if this is kind of confusing, make sure you pause it, take a look at the code, try it yourself. I thought this was just a fun way to learn. So if we go current, next thing we want the current year. I could have just used the normal JavaScript library, but I thought I was going to use the FNSCS one. So I can do new date, YYY. So that'll just give the current year in that format, the 4-digit year. And then I have to close the browser. And then I want to return a string. So we're going to do a little string interpolation here. We're going to return the current year. We're going to call it GitHub contributions. And then we're going to pass in that contribs that we just created. Sweet. So that should work. Oh, by the way, it's saying unknown word. That's a C spell thing. Don't worry about it. We can just add it to the definition. Quick fix, add contribs to user dictionary. Cool. And also don't worry about this browser here. I misspelled it. There we go. Okay. So now we need to actually put this all together. So now I have two methods, one for grab YT data and one for grab GitHub data. So let's see if we can put it together. So I'm going to create one more function. It's going to call async function main. And we're going to first grab the GitHub data, which we're going to do from async grab GitHub data, if I did that correctly. And what did I do wrong here? Oh, I'm supposed to await it. Excuse me. Await. And then I'm going to grab the YouTube data. I'm going to await the grab YT data. And then I'm going to put it together for our website information. Well, let's call it URL. We'll call it URL. And so once again, we're going to grab the video URL. And then we're going to combine that with the YouTube one we just created. Hopefully returned it back correctly. And then we're going to create this params. So we're creating an object, which is going to have our location, which is going to be our GitHub data. And we're going to have a URL. And then finally, we're going to do the client.post. And this is a part of the Twitter API. And if you don't know where that is, you can just kind of look through. If you do, so it's going to be account/update profile. And if you just Google for Twitter update account profile, you'll actually get right to this page, and it'll tell you all the URL parameters that you need. And so URL is going to change the URL, and location is going to change the location. So that's exactly what we want. And if that works, so we have to pass in the params. And if that works, then I'm just going to console log success. And then last thing we need to do is actually call it. So I'm going to call main, and then I'm going to catch any errors that come out of it. And we'll just console log the error. Okay, so we've done it all. We've added it all in here. This is all nice ESM modules using Node and TypeScript. We could probably add some more typing in there if we wanted to, but that's fine for me. So let's see if it works. So I'm going to go to my Twitter profile, and I'll refresh it. And so you can see the last thing it says is contributions 101, and it has this YouTube. So I'm going to edit this. I'm just going to put this back to youtube.com just for now. Let's see if it changes it. So that's the point of this. So we're going to run it, and we can do npm run dev, and we'll see if what happens. Great, it succeeded. So let's take a look. Let's refresh it. Awesome. So now we have 104 contributions, and we have the URL. So everything is working as it should. So this is really neat. You can see just with a few clicks, a few APIs, I was able to create this API. Now it's updating my Twitter. Now you're probably thinking, like, how do I get this update every day? Well, what I would do is, and what I did is, I'll add this bot to my server that I have run locally. But you can also run this on AWS. You can also run this through Linode. You can also run this a bunch of other places. And then just set up your cron job. And I use this one called crontab.guru. So every day at 8 o'clock, this runs, and I just copy and paste this into my cron tab, and then it'll run every day at 8 o'clock, and it will update the number of contributions and my latest YouTube video. All right, so that's it for today. Let me know what you guys think. Try it out for yourself, see if you have any issues or problems. I love it. Also, make sure you check out tab 9. I appreciate it. Thanks. Bye.